McDaniel can't move on it. Now he does. The shot, passing down. Rebound, score!
Hey, welcome to the Toe and the Crease podcast, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the NHL on a relatively toasty afternoon. I'm SJ. That's the co-host WillyDubyz there.
Hope everyone's doing well on this. I guess for, like we said, it's a Saturday. It's like a toasty Saturday evening for us. So I hope everyone's doing great. I know I'm roasting kind of in my room, so I had to kind of crank the fan on a little bit. I don't know what it is. My house apparently is just roasting me.
I don't know. I kind of I was one of the few last gelato ice cream days, I think. So I just kind of went with my sister and we got food and then just grabbed the gelato from like this Italian place. And it's like most gelato is usually pretty good. So can't complain.
Do you know of any bad gelato places in the GTA? I'm kind of curious because you're the one that eats
gelato.
No. Okay, so you can't.
But like, it's interesting. Because so few places do it. I remember last week I went down to Jay's Orioles with my friend Tyler, who came in from Edmonton, and it's funny. So we're walking back to near where his hotel is, and it looks pretty dead for some reason, which is weird for a Friday night downtown. But the one place that had a line out the door, we thought it was a line for a nightclub. It was this Italian gelato place that was open late.
That's crazy.
And I mean, the line was wrapped around the block. Like,
yo, imagine a gelato place having a line. That's crazy. Like, I assume you have to be good. You have to be good in that case, or you might be the only place that's open that has any sort of.
I just assume that if you have it, it's good. I'd be stunned just because I think it's just so few places do it. Because most places, if you go to for ice cream, it's like similar to like Baskin or something like that, or they have like Kawartha ice cream. So in Ontario, like Kawartha Dairy does a lot of the ice, like the mom and pop style ice cream for a lot of places. So that's good. And then too. It's really good. And they're very generous with the scoops, I will say. And usually, people get like Wolf Tracks or Moose Paws or Wolf Paws or Moose Tracks or something like that.
Yo, Moose Tracks is so fucking good. That's the one I buy from.
I have to get a Wolf Paws because the nut allergy.
Okay. Because Costco used to have the big ass containers of it. We used to just get as many of them as we could. Like those were the days. I don't think
also Campfire S'mores is pretty good too. I will say. I'm a s'mores guy, but
I know Costco doesn't do the Kawartha anymore. They replaced it with Chapman's, which is kind of annoying. Which is kind of sad.
Yeah, Chapman's is pretty good too.
Nah, I'm out on Chapman.
No, Chapman's guy not supporting the Canadian content there, the CanCon. Interesting thing about gelato and ice cream, I will say, is there ever a bigger discrepancy between what it actually is and what it's used in flavoring than Biscoff? Have you ever had Biscoff cookies?
No.
So there's this Biscoff are basically like, I don't want to say they're basically, I think they're Belgian off the top of my head, but they're Belgian cookies essentially, right? They're kind of like digestive cookies, and we have them. They're nut free, so we have them in our house. And like I've tried them, they're fine, but when they're used in flavoring, so like the most popular gelato at this place we went to was Biscoff gelato, and like there's Biscoff pancakes. McDonald's had the Biscoff McFlurry not too long ago, but Biscoff's just like it's a really popular topping on things. Like Biscoff cheesecake is also pretty big. But if you ever actually have Biscoff cookies, they're not that great. It's not like Oreos where like they put Oreo in everything, but Oreo tastes good, right? Like Oreos on their own are fine. Biscoff cookies.
Okay, I'm out on Oreos in general, but that's just me. But
I just mean overall, like overall consensus, the Oreos are pretty good. And it's just funny because with Biscoff, it's like they're like the most average cookie, like digestive cookie. It feels like you could have, and they're really good as like flavoring and toppings for other sweets. It's weird.
But they're not good. But they're not kind of the cookie. They're not cookies.
They're not great on their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, because we went there and like all the other gelatos were pretty full, except the Biscoff one was like, there was like a couple slivers left. So maybe I just took like the last bit. But like, just because we're like, everyone else was taking it. And then
again, it's one of those like, well, if everyone else is going for it, there has to be a reason why.
And the lady serving it was like, it's her favorite one. So we kind of pounced. But it's just weird. I don't think there's something with a greater discrepancy as what Biscoff cookies actually are versus the amount of flavoring, like the amount of things they're used as like a flavor enhancement in.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I tried to get the McFlurry a few weeks ago, it was like, at least in my local area, it's hard to find a place that, like one of the McDonald's that still had it.
Yeah, because they sold out really quick. Yeah.
It was the same with
It's
the
just
strawberry
weird though.
cheesecake one too.
It's just weird though if you actually have a regular Biscoff cookie, like, yeah, this is whatever. But it's weird because every other thing you think about, right? I'm not a Score guy, allergic to nuts, but Score is really popular amongst people that eat it. And you think about some of the other stuff they have, like, Smarties, Oreos. I know you're not, but just in general, Oreos, like Coffee Crisp, Kit Kat, like stuff that's used as flavoring and other things is really popular generally, right? So it's kind of interesting that like Biscoff's one of the one that's, again, doesn't taste as good on its own, but it's for some reason it just works with cheesecakes, pancakes, ice cream. Like I don't know.
That's fair. No, I mean, again, like I said, I tried to get it and I couldn't get one, but I've never actually had the Biscoff cookies by itself. That's the one. I haven't had them on their own, but I've been told at least like once or twice they're just kind of which kind of I think lines up
they're
with
digestive cookies. Like they're fine.
yeah, lines up with what you said, them being average, right? Like if
they're better than
that's not
Peak
average.
Freens, but that's a low bar.
Wait, which are the Peak Freens ones?
There's like this old company that used to make digestive cookies back in the day, like PEEKFREANS, Peak Freens.
Don't they?
They used to make shortbread cookies, digestive cookies, like these. This is again This is like
they had the fruit cream ones, right, with the red.
I hate it. Oh my, those are the worst.
Yo, I love those, but those are so
really.
Good.
Those are good. I hate.
Okay, what did you hate about them? What did you hate about
them?
Okay,
I'm just not a fan of fruit unless it's like cheesecake. I'm just not a fan of fruit in baked goods in general. So like, I'm not a blueberry muffin guy. Not like
apart from the fruit part, was like the cookie fine for what it was, like apart from the fruit
but
part.
The strawberry is such an overwhelming part of it, right? It's the entire center. So
I know, yeah, but sometimes when you first bite into it, you only get the part that's like before the strawberry.
It's just not for me. I hated them. And the thing is, every time you went to school, they always had them, and you're just like, man, like anything.
Oh, really? My school didn't have them. I just got them on my own. My mom used to just buy them for me, and I used to like them, but then I think my mom was like, yo, those cookies probably aren't good for you, so I still...
Did your mom used to buy those tins of Danish cookies back in the day?
Yes. I know because we have we still have the actual tin, but we use it as like a tin for like our sewing stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
dude, every minority family I know had those, man. You used to go to each other, like, you always had to go to each other's house for some reason. There was always this box tin of Danish cookies, bro. I don't know what store sold them all the time, but they were just always there.
You know what's worse? I think whenever you try to get those, whenever you're at someone's place or you're even at your own place, whenever you open the tin of cookies, it always, instead of being cookies inside, it always used to be somebody's like sewing stuff. Like you're just like, fuck.
What would annoy me is because they were sorted, and there was like this one cookie was shaped like a pretzel that was like the best one, but there were only like 3 of them, and you had to look through the entire box of like, and they don't have it like stacked. It's like they have those little like cupcake kind of cup like
holders, right?
They have cupcake holder kind of things with the cookie in them, right? So
they put exactly. Yeah, they put one of those in there. I remember there's a couple. I didn't really like the pretzel one, so it would have been funnier if, like, honestly, we could have just did a trade where here you take the pretzel ones, I'll take whatever the heck you don't want.
Yeah,
it honestly could have been a funny trade for us, but yeah.
What was your like best childhood cookie? Would you say, like your favorite one, like your go-to?
Childhood. Oh, that's tough. Man, I ate a lot of the Chips Ahoy ones when I was younger. They're not my favorite, but that's the most common one, right? And I didn't eat that many cookies otherwise. The fruit cream ones were fine, but they weren't like, again, like, I'm trying to think, because the Chips Ahoy ones I always finished. The fruit cream ones, there was once in a while where I didn't finish the box. My mom always got mad at me for wasting the box, but so probably the Chips Ahoy one or the Chunks Ahoy ones, probably. Like, okay. I'm a chocolate chip cookie guy, and like I like chunks because I want more chocolate in my cookie. So like even nowadays, I usually get the President's Choice, the chunks ones, not the chip ones.
President's Choice cookies are like, for people that don't live in Canada, such a game changer.
It's a fucking.
They're crack.
Like
they're crack. They're crack in a box.
Every time we get them in my house, like they're gone within a day and a half. And there's like, so when I'm on my own, obviously I can kind of like, I do have a little bit of control, I will admit, but not very much. When it comes to those cookies. A little bit of self-control. Okay, well, the cookies last like 2-3 days at least for me. Like it's, I still think that's better than most people because like I think because obviously you mentioned you like them. I don't think they last more than a day for you if you start eating.
No, they do. I don't eat like we have like my 3 I think were those Dad's cookies because they were nut free. So like just really
you have the nut allergy, so that's kind of a
Dad's oatmeal chocolate chip and Fudgios obviously were just Fudgios were crack to me. Yeah. Those are the ones like
I
I
think,
could go
to be
through.
fair,
Like,
we're in slightly different time frames, like childhood wise, right? So I think that might
for sure,
that's
yeah.
where there's some discrepancies. So I was waiting for you to give me the look for not knowing what those were, but then I guess maybe you probably realized I probably just didn't have those growing up. Although you did give me the look for the fruit cream ones.
I mean, if you grew, I'm honestly a lot of that stuff is iconic. Like, you know what Dunkaroos are for? That was like an iconic one.
Yeah, Dunkaroos. Yeah, I had those.
Yeah, like every kid in school pretty much had the same sugar stuff growing up. The only thing is, I hope by
the fruit by the foot,
yeah.
Too,
The only thing is, I hope by the time
growing up.
you guys grew up, at least like. I hope they stopped giving Sunny D at schools because they used to give it to us, and we used to think it was like a balanced part of a healthy. They used to advertise because basically like orange juice.
That shit ain't
Yeah,
pure sugar, bro.
Right? And but
my mom knew it was pure sugar. That's why.
Every time you used to go to school breakfast programs, they used to give you Sunny D, and like every time, because of that, your parents would always get it at home, and you'd always assume it was orange juice, and it was just sugar incarnate, basically.
Yeah, that's why my mom never got Sunny D. Like during in my childhood, like she always just like, okay, if the school gives it to you, that's fine. Like it's free food, but I'm just.
But you're not buying it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So my mom at least smartened up in that regard. Like she was definitely smart in that regard. I don't know if anybody else's household just bought.
No, we all bought it, and then like once we started to get older, we were like, you start reading the nutritional labels a bit more, and you're like, what the fuck is?
And you're like, this thing's just pure sugar. It is just. Genuinely,
but the thing is, it was colored like orange juice too, so it was even more misleading, right?
That's why I said it's literally a trap. It is a straight up trap.
100%. Speaking of traps, good transition there. Today, snack talk aside, we are previewing the Metro division, and this was kind of a trap division. Like, I don't think we have a I'm 90% sure we don't have consensus on where all these teams are finishing because it's just a lot of question marks. In this division, I think.
I think each team has a question mark. Just some teams have more question marks than other teams. That's what I kind of figured out as I was going through each of the teams. And I remember when I was doing the research for this, I'm not gonna lie, I was moving the teams around. Like there was
100%.
I was just moving them around. I'm like, bro, I don't know what I could give an argument for every single, like not every single scenario, but like every single different spot that he could have finished. I could be like, okay, this makes sense, and no one would call me crazy. But then I was like, it was really difficult to kind of pick it out.
To me, this was a trap division because there's so many teams you could get caught up on the potential on or get caught up on like the talent, but it's like and then there's some teams where you get caught up on the results from last year. It's just a weird division. This one I think is the one that could break the most different out of how we're kind of looking at it. I think them in the Central. I think depending on that Blues, Wild, Utah trio, like that could break differently. But this one, I think, top to bottom is just it's a little bit all over the place. It's teams in like different stages too, which is really interesting. So
also, I joke if you're doing, I don't know if anyone's doing like an NHL kind of wins league. So we do an NFL wins league, so that's a different story. But basically, pick your team person with the teams with the most wins the thing. If you're doing one of those for the NHL, I think this division is the one that could absolutely just like either crater your chances or just like you win, right? Because like you could be wrong about any one of these teams, and that wouldn't show.
I remember last year when we did our preview, I thought Columbus might finish as the worst team in the league last year, right? Especially post rest in peace Johnny Gaudreau. But like, I thought this could be the worst team in the league, and they well went above expectations. But let's start with the division preview. I have my sleeper for worst team in the league. I have the Flyers in last. Is there any debate here? No.
So I was debating between the Flyers and the Islanders, and I remember because we were talking about when we talked about teams with some of the worst situations, the Islanders were kind of right there too, right? And it's funny because the Flyers, I think we actually picked them to be the team that we thought would be better, ironically, and it's actually that was the other thing we were wrong about, along with Columbus being the worst team there. I did have the Flyers, but it was really close between the Islanders and Flyers. Like I could have gone either way with both.
So let's talk about it. The Flyers were not a good team last year. I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat this. 24th in goals for, 28th in goals against. Funnily enough, their expected stats were pretty good, but it kind of shows you how bad the talent level was, that despite their expected stats being so good, they finished as poorly as they did. And they did make some additions this year. So like, Ivan Fedotov, based on last year, was addition by subtraction. And they added Trevor Zegras in the trade, and they added Dan Vladar in free agency. I'll say this. Vladar's an upgrade on its own because Ursin and Fedotov were two of the worst goalies in the league last year.
Well, Ursin
without question.
Ursin was the worst.
Was he actually the worst?
Yeah, he was the worst. He was minus. I think. Hold on, I forget what the exact number was, but he was okay. He was. I think he was out of 103 goalies that played at least one game. He was 103, and I think it was. Hold on. Yeah, minus 19.9.
Yeah. So there were two of the worst goalies in the league. I'll say swapping Fedotov for Vladar will definitely help. Vladar's like a solid backup, if nothing else. But
he's an average
goaltending still.
Like, he's at least average.
Yeah.
He's better than whatever the fuck Fedotov. Well, Fedotov was the fourth worst goalie in goal state. Yeah. So that's by default you're gonna be better in that regard. So
the goaltending's still a big question mark. Again, was that like a one-off like first year, or is Ursin legitimately that bad? And if and in a division with pretty strong goaltending across the board for the most part, even from some of the lower teams, like having bad goaltending in this division just isn't going to get you very far. And having Ursin, if he's going to play like he did last year, start around 45-ish games, it's just a death sentence right off the bat. If I'm looking at the defense on this team, it's kind of weird, right? So I think Cam York has the highest potential on this team, but he's not their best defenseman.
Yeah, York and Sandheim are their two best defensemen. The problem is they have them paired together, which is kind of the issue. Because then after that, it's just like it's a fall off between.
Well, it's also kind of weird because I think defensively, Sealer and Sandheim are their best defensive defensemen, and then Drysdale's their power play guy, the guy they're trying to make work. And Drysdale's weird because he's a good skater. He's a really good skater because if you watch his skating, it pops off the screen. But that's all he does, really.
He's ass in everything else. Okay, so. For context, I had him in fantasy last year. If you look at his there was like a game log at one point where it's just 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And it's like, it's not even just the points. It's like no shots, not like he just doesn't do anything else but skate.
It's interesting because he's probably one of the better defensive skaters in the league, but he's not an elite passer yet. He doesn't shoot. He doesn't generate any pressure from his shooting. He's not good defensively. And they keep him there as like the power play quarterback. So it's very interesting to see where that goes, but having that as like your best offensive defenseman technically in theory is like a big question mark. I think Cam York has the most potential on his team, but again, he's not trusted with that responsibility yet, and he's not the best defensive defenseman on the team. And then Sealer and Sandheim, I think, are really good middle six guys. So it's overall, you're already looking at a backbone where you have shaky goaltending and questionable defense right off the bat. And then their team's also kind of weird because traditionally you like a strong backbone, but their wings might actually be better than their centers.
Well, their wingers are better than their centers, right? Because Couturier is kind of at this point in his career where he is declining. He is what he is. He's declining. And Michkov and Konechny are by far their two best players. And unfortunately, both of them are right wingers, right? And you're not going to convert one of them to center. So it is what it is. If you look at their center depth, though, Couturier is no longer a center one. Like I think
it's going to be interesting because Couturier is probably their most well-rounded center if you're talking about like defense, face-offs, offense, right, all that. But the ceiling of this team has to figure out how Zegras and Michkov play together. So they almost have to be together by default because that's, again, a lot of this is asset development, and figuring out how those two play together will determine a lot for this team because Porter Martone isn't going to be playing this year.
Anyway. Yeah, he isn't. They're not going to throw him into this kind of dumpster fire, right? The problem with Zegras though is that apart from he has the playmaking potential, but I think everything else he just doesn't have. I think for me, what it takes to be a center, right? He's not good at faceoffs. He obviously doesn't have a good defense. He doesn't have a good defensive game. He's an offensively oriented player, so I don't know how he fits on this. He might end up being forced to go to the wing, and then at that point, your center depth gets even worse, right? Because if you telling me you want to push Noah Cates as your second line center, I think that's kind of a death sentence on your season in itself. So
yeah, and there's not like a high ceiling on the team. Like outside of again Michkov being the highest ceiling player, Brink has some potential, and then we talked about Cam York. Like there's just, and I guess people are still holding out hope for Drysdale. There's not a lot of major upside on this team either, which is another issue. And then also you have to bear in mind, some of these guys might be traded at the deadline for assets to further the rebuild. And then there's another thing too, where Rick Tockett's coming in as the coach, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. Rick Tocchet, if you look at the history of teams he's coached, this goes back to Phoenix and both Vancouver. They play low event hockey, and the weird thing is, like, while it might be better to grind out wins in the regular season with teams that are less talented. I'd argue with this team, you kind of want a more up-tempo offensive style. So it's going to be kind of interesting how that meshes when really, like, the point of this year is how do Zegras, Michkov, to a lesser extent, Brink and Cam York develop? And you have to kind of figure that out, right? And it's going to be interesting to see if Rick Tocchet adapts or he just sticks with what's worked for him. So I'm kind of curious to see how that meshes as well.
I think the other problem too is for the people who probably wanted to argue that Philadelphia had good analytics. Again, I think we mentioned that in terms of
7th in expected goals for,
12th in expected goals against, 12th in high danger chances against. The problem is when you start playing low event hockey, those are going to go down because when you're playing low event hockey, your expected goals for theoretically has to go down because you're not getting the same
you're not generating
high quality chances. So your high danger chances for is going to go down. You're already 19th in that, so that goes down even further. You're probably let's say 22nd, 23rd. You're not generating a good chance to begin with. You don't have the talent to finish. You're not one of those teams that has enough talent to have low high danger chances because then at least talent can kind of shine through in that regard. So I mean, if your analytics are already going to go down and this team has no talent already, I just don't really see much hope for this team. And I think for the goaltending too, you mentioned the point about Urson. So my problem with Urson is that despite being 12th in expected goals against and 12th in high danger chances against, he was the worst goalie in goal save above expected. And the problem with that is I'm more okay if you're the worst if your team just didn't help you. Because at a certain point, you can at least blame the team. But the team I don't want to say gave him plenty of help, but they gave him more than enough help, and he was just ass. And
100%.
I hate to say this, if you're rolling with him, if you're rolling with him into the season, I don't know what you expect to change out of him. Like, I'm not holding out for hope that he figured out some mechanical issue like with him in this year. It's like I'm not holding out hope for that kind of shit. And like, sure, Vladar is going to come in with 30 better games than Fedotov, but when this team doesn't have a lot of offensive talent to begin with, reminder, this team didn't have a player that was over a point per game too. So that's another issue you have there too. You don't have the scoring.
Or frankly, close. I guess Konechny was close, but like
Konechny was the closest, and then maybe if you think Michkov takes that step. The problem is, again, sophomore slump is a real possibility for anybody. So I just don't see much hope with this Flyers team. Like it was close for me with the Islanders because I did give a thought to the analytics, but the problem is with Tocchet coming in, that kind of that's going to sink whatever analytics you have. So.
I think the issue is just like I look at other teams where when I say this is a sleeper for worst team in the league, what I mean is, well, if you look at it, so just to back up your point first, Konechny was 0.93, but after that it was Michkov at 0.79, and then after that the next highest was Couturier at 0.57. This wasn't a good offensive team, right? But my point is, I think the issue is with the other teams, like with San Jose, if say Celebrini takes a leap, Smith, Eklund, if Misa just is an impact rookie right away. If Askarov's like, there's more factors where you can see like a team take a leap forward, not necessarily the playoff team, just to be better than last in the league. With Bedard takes a leap, and the defensive prospects Chicago has one of them ends up really panning out. There's something there. And again with the Ducks, it's a bunch of young guys. If a couple of them hit, sure. I don't really see that with this team doesn't have the same ceiling yet. Because they're just now starting the rebuild. And they started it basically with Michkov and then Porter Martone. So that's why, to me, this team's a sleeper for, like... This definitely last in the division for me without a question. But the teams might... Like, if you were to... Again, we're not a gambling podcast, but if you were to put odds on it, would be my potential bet for sleeper team for worst team in the league without question.
Also, I don't think we'll be wrong. We'll be wrong twice about the same team this time. So... Like,
I don't think for sure.
I don't think they're gonna, shock the world and make the playoff or some ridiculous bullshit that happens.
My X factor for this team this season's all about Michkov's development. So I have Matvei Michkov. I don't. Think.
I think it's Michkov is probably the most obvious one. I say the other one is Zegras because at least maybe you can see, do you have center one? At least you have that figured out. Like because you're gonna play him with Michkov, so this is your chance to see if he still has any of that talent left and if he's capable of being that elite kind of player, right? Because Zegras, he showed spurts of it in Anaheim, but then there was also spurts in Anaheim where he just didn't show anything at all. So I think you can pick between the two. You could probably lean a bit more towards Michkov, but I think X Factor is probably Michkov, but then I don't know what the right word is would be for Zegras. But
I think basically the whole point of the season is like, what's the development of those two guys, basically? Yeah, and again to a lesser extent, Cam York and two. Like that's all the team should be focused.
I'm personally I'm not out on Cam York, but I don't rate him as highly, I'd say. Like, I think it really does come down to, do you have a top, can Mitchkov eventually maybe get to that kind of top 10 NHL player status? And do you at least see more flashes of that this year?
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next team. So, you said you had the Isles. I had Pittsburgh, second last.
So, Pittsburgh's interesting because, when I looked at Pittsburgh, this team was the definition of pretty much close to fun
and gun. But there wasn't a lot of fun being had in Pittsburgh last year.
And there also wasn't a lot of gun. There wasn't a lot of gun in terms of at least their bullets hitting either. It was
so
boom, boom,
my
boom,
thing with Pittsburgh is, again, you look at all the numbers last year. They were 29th in goals against, 29th in shots against, 27th in high danger chances against, 20th in expected goals against. This was not a good defensive team by any stretch. And the problem is they didn't really do any outside of the coaching change, because Mike Sullivan did play a very chancy, again, give up high danger chances, press high danger chances kind of system. My problem is, and my question with this team when I looked at everything was, can this team generate enough resistance defensively? They added Seelovs in the offseason, who hasn't been that great at this point in his NHL career, but he will get a chance because Jury has just been horrible for the most part. The other thing too is,
and I think Bloomquist is out too for
hurt. Yeah, exactly.
And he was the only other, I guess, somewhat passable option.
And honestly, minus Clifton, there's a lot of negative defenders. Like, this team lost Marcus Pettersson. They lost Dumoulin. They don't have the same guys they do on the back end. There's a lot of minus defenders. The only upside on the back end really is Carlson and Letang's playmaking on the back end, because you have two lines where you have a decent playmaker. If, again, they're not what they used to be, but they're still good enough. And everything else on this team is in a weird spot, because they're in a weird spot where they're rebuilding, but they can't trade their best assets right now, because their best assets technically are Crosby. Carlson, Letang, right? And they're not trading Crosby and Letang, so what are you really going to do? And there's so many question marks down the middle, just aside from Crosby. Forget Crosby on his own, great. You can pencil him in for point per game, potentially until he retires at this point. But Malkin's
declined to the point where I don't even want to question it, but he's declined to the point where I understand why they're probably not going to re-sign him, right? Like 100%. Has he had a great career with them? But yes, but at this point in his career, he does his legs don't barely look like they exist. He doesn't put up the same kind of production. He doesn't shoot very much. He can't win faceoffs. He's not even involved. It's gotten so bad that they actually took him off power play 1. And it's been, I don't know the last time I've ever seen Malkin off power play 1 for the Penguins. But I think it's gotten to that point where that's kind of the end of the road for him.
Don't get me wrong, the time's come in a way, because he's his 18th, 19th year in the league. But last year was his first year below 0.8 points per game. He's never been lower. Even rookie year going on, which is, again, crazy. Last year was the first year his shots on goal dipped to 2 per game. Again, and it kind of shows in his play, he's a lot more passive, and his skating's a lot slower than it used to be. Even his time on ice dipped the lowest it's been since, outside of 2021, the lowest it's been since his rookie year. So everything's just dipping on everything. Everything across the board is declining. So it's kind of, again, it's not the same. And so you have a declining Malkin, you have Crosby, who's obviously elite, and then you have a bunch of question marks behind him. And when I look at the wings, it feels like everything's concentrated on the first line, because even the wings have issue. Minus Raquel and Rust, it's and they're both on the first line. Where else is the wing talent? I think Anthony Mantha is scheduled to be on the second line, which is crazy.
Yeah, I think it is indeed Anthony Mantha, who I don't know how he's
how many teams has he been on?
Well, I still question why he's still in the league at this point, because he's bounced around so many teams. I feel is this the definition of everybody's I can fix the I can fix her kind of thing, up on the guy perspective, the I can fix her.
I don't know. To me, this team's just, the only potential is the coaching change. Maybe is the argument was it the defense last year, or was it Mike Sullivan's system?
Yeah, I leaned a little bit more into the coaching change. That's why I didn't have them at 7. I had them actually at 6. So I had them at 6, so it wasn't that bad. So I had the Islanders at 7. So the Islanders are kind of weird.
We'll talk about the Isles in a sec, because I'll give you my argument for them over Pittsburgh in a second. But to me, it's just overall, when I look at this roster, it's literally one line. That and Carlson, that's it. The rest of this team is in complete disarray. There's assets that could be traded again as this team enters a rebuild. I think Raquel and Russ are definitely not off the board. And the young talent just isn't there enough for me to really assume there's going to be a leap. Like, a lot of this young talent is very unproven and very, like, outside of Rucker and McGroarty, it's very low pedigree. So there's another issue as well. So for me, there's just not much going on. Like, you have to bank on basically the coaching change being the answer for this team to even be better than they were last year. So I just don't have them that high. Like, I just don't have them that high. And if it wasn't for Crosby, this team would be worse than the Flyers, frankly. That's the truth. Like, that's it.
Yeah, I think there was obviously going to be question marks whether Crosby gets traded, but I don't think he ends up getting traded. But I think that's why, like, I'd be fine with having them. Like, I don't know. I'm kind of it's weird. Like, if they have Crosby for the whole year, this team will be like at least be better than what they would be without him. But again, it is a one-line team. Like, it is the Crosby, Rust, Raquel line that's going to carry that offense. Although I feel a little bit more confident about that line than, maybe
any other line on this team. Yeah.
Well, any other line on this team and any other line on the Islanders, quite frankly. But
we'll talk about the Isles. But overall, I think X factor for me is Rucker and McGroarty. I just look. Here's the thing. I'm not saying he's good. I don't know what he's going to be, but he was a first round pick, and at some point there needs to be some semblance of young talent on this team. So ideally, you want him to develop into something. Otherwise, like, you want to talk about a long rebuild. This will be a long rebuild. And so you want, like, again, whether it's him or Ville Koivunen, one of these guys has to do something for you.
Or the NHL could just hand them Gavin McKenna. But
that's
what I see more likely happening, to be honest. But I'll just, as a Gavin McKenna, you are a Pittsburgh Penguin. Just kidding.
All right, so let's go. Let's talk about the Islanders versus the Penguins. So the Islanders last year, kind of weird. Again, similar to the Flyers, where their
offensive analytics are fine. The problem is it's their defensive analytics that are bad. But
it's weird, right? Because you think they'd be a better defensive team than they were. You think
they'd be a better defensive team given what they have on the back end and given who they have in net. Because out of all the teams we talked about so far, they have by far the best goalie out of all those teams, right?
Also, all-time bad special teams. Dead last in both.
Well, I think they're second last. I think it was second last in both, but close enough.
Sorry, yeah. Like, all-time bad. I don't understand how Patrick Waugh still has a job on this roster. Granted, I get the roster's not great, but, like, I don't understand how he has a job when you look at, like, for a guy who was a former goalie, for their defensive analytics to be so bad and their special teams to be so bad. I don't understand how he's still employed by this team. My main question was like, can this team generate enough offense? Because here's the thing. The wing talent does have potential, right? Shabanov and Siplikov have upside. Duclair and Drouin, if not in the doghouse, are capable players, right? Like, I can't deny that. The center depth, there's not a lot of offensive upside outside of Barzal, but it's fine. Like, I think Horvat, Barzal, Pajot, and whoever, like, it's not great, but it's serviceable.
Well, I think
right?
The problem was you saw last year when they didn't have Barzal how bad it could be, right? Because this team didn't have a guy over 60 points last year.
Yeah,
and I think even Barzal, I think even Barzal's pace might have been there was a chance he might not have hit 60 points given the pace he started with before he got that injury. But I guess with him back, their offense, maybe you hope it bounces back. But even then, like, I'm not gonna lie, it feels like the Islanders are just sucking the talent out of Barzal at this point because
the issue is they don't have a lot of playmaking through the center. Again, Horvat's good, but he's not like an elite playmaker through the center. I think the wing talent does have some potential there. And the other problem too is if you're not going to get the playmaking from the center side outside of Barzal, you'd ideally want it from your back end. But the problem is the defense has too many one-dimensional players, right? Like D'Angelo is basically just offense and power play. And the rest only play defense. And if Matt Schaefer is going to make the roster, he's too young, right? He's going to be sheltered initially, and that's fine. That's what you're supposed to do with a young player. But he's not ready to contribute in a meaningful way as of yet, I would assume. So it's just too many one-dimensional guys that don't really help service the offense. And again, under Patrick Waugh, it hasn't been a good defense either. So it's like, what's the point of these guys?
I think the biggest thing we forget to talk about is they traded away the only guy that was probably good on both sides, right? Dobson.
Both ends with Dobson, yeah.
Yeah, they traded the only guy that was good at both. So now they're stuck with you're either good at one thing or you're good at the other thing. And there's like literally no in-between with these guys.
Like, the only other upside I have is Sorokin is obviously really good. Riddich,
is,
sure,
though, I
not
think with
great.
Sorokin is we keep thinking that year where he I think that 1 year he had we keep thinking that's what Sorokin is, but I think the reality is he's closer to just being like a really good goalie than like an elite goalie, because the last few years just
For
haven't
sure,
been
but
great.
he was 10th in goal save above expected. He played 61 games last year. Like that's really good. Like when you consider guys like Stolarz was 4th, he played 34, and like Jake Allen was 9th, he played 31. Right, so it's like, when you talk about 61 games still being top 10, I think is really good. The issue, and again, he plays a lot of volume, which helps because David Rittich is the backup. It's
And for
just overall when I look,
Riddich was ass on a really good defensive team. Like just that's for the context I'll give you. He's kind of like a slightly better version of Urson. I that's honestly the way I look at it.
but overall, the only reason I have this team again, the issue with this team is like, can this team generate enough offense and can the defense improve? But like this team just overall is just a bit more of a solid roster in terms of depth, I would say. And they have a couple more pieces with upside here and there than the Penguins do. But yeah, like again, I just have them 6 just because I think the roster is just a little bit better. It doesn't have the same high end talent, but it's just better overall.
See, the problem, the reason why I had the Islanders 7th was that while their talent is slightly better, I think Patrick Wall is just like a terrorist of a hockey coach essentially. Like I don't know if you've that I have more. I'd rather take the chance with the guy coming in with Pittsburgh, because at least it's kind of like a fresh breath. Whereas what Patrick Waugh, that's like you saw Duclair just basically like you saw the whole thing with Duclair and Waugh. Like obviously Dobson's numbers weren't the same when Waugh took over. Like you saw him, he kind of just,
I think that's the biggest thing that bugs me is like when I watch them, I don't understand what their system is. And again, not that like Lane Lambert's system was great either, but you saw how he played through the back end, and you saw like Dobson's performance under Lambert versus under Waugh, for example. And like, I just don't understand if they were really like, again, Barry Trotz had a very clear defensive system. Like you understood, was it sexy? No, but you understood what it was. When I watch this team, I don't understand what the system is because they're not generating enough chances. Like they're giving up a lot of chance. They're not generating enough like insanely quality chances.
They're generating decent chances, but they don't have enough offensive talent to like bury those chances.
Well,
right?
They're not generating a lot of high quality chances. I think they're 10th in high danger chances for, which like if you bear in mind how many chances they give up, so it's like they don't generate enough chances for me to give up the level of chances that they do, and then it's basically relying on Sorokin to cover it up. And I don't know, I'm just not a fan of it. But again, I'm not as worried about Waugh because I'm sure he'll get part of the year. Darsh will fire him and hire his own guy because that's what happens in
I think that's kind of what it hinges on, right? Because I think if Waugh gets fired like at least early enough in the season or like even midway through, like I think the Islanders have a better shot of finishing like ahead of the Pens. But I genuinely think if Waugh stays the coach the whole year, there's a real shot that the Pens might finish slightly higher than them, even if they trade a couple guys. Because
again,
I have no faith in Patrick Waugh as a coach.
You could talk to me one way or another. I just think overall, outside of Crosby, the Isles roster is better. Or Crosby and Carlson, the Isles roster is better. My X factor for this team, Maxim Shabanov. Look, I don't know what this guy's going to be. He seems like a very high ceiling, low floor. But the ceiling, when you watch this guy, man, it is so... yes, is he small? Yes. But man, the shooting and the passing and the skating is so good. Like, he's so good. And he's young too. I think he's 23, if I remember correctly. Like he's really young. And like when I watch him play, there's a lot of potential. And again, I think he has the potential to be not a high bar, but I think he has the potential to be the best forward on this roster. So I am kind of curious to watch his development.
He was like a free agent signing from the KHL, right? Like that's basically what he was, right? So I think when
you watch him, like he pops off the tape. I don't know how consistent it'll be in an NHL, but like you watch the tape, it pops. Like it pops.
See, that's the problem though with these Russian signings all the time. Like some of them will hit, and then some of them just don't. Like actually, well, I would say most of them don't typically hit. I think Panarin's like the one exception where it actually really hit. Because like I keep thinking back to like Gusev didn't work out here. Who else? Like who's the guy that signed?
There was a guy that the Vegas took to be their number one center, and I can't remember his name. But like so in the expansion, near the expansion draft, he was supposed to be their number one center. They took him from Russia, and he didn't even play. His name was Vadim something.
Oh, is it like Shipayov or something?
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, but he was penciled in number one center, like coming from the KHL. Dude didn't even make the and like left after like 30 games
Oh no,
or something.
he played 3 games. Yeah, he played 3 games, and then he just said,
Yeah,
"Fuck
like
this, I'm not."
no, but he
seeing
was
that."
like basically just left back to Russia. So yeah, no, there's definitely. But to me, I think in terms of X factor, like because Schaefer's too young, I think, to really contribute meaningfully at this point. That I think if I'm looking at the guy who has the most potential to add to this roster for the future going forward, it's Shabbatov, without question. Because there's not a lot of forward talent.
Well, I was gonna say,
I mean, you could say Holmes.
There's not a lot of young guys on this team that have quality.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
so
Like, sure, you could say
else.
Holmstrom and Siplikov, but they don't pop the way Shabbatov does, man.
They don't.
They do not.
They're kind of. I don't want to say they're high floor, low ceiling players, but that's kind of what they are. Like
they're middle.
Are they good players? Yes, they're really good players, but like they're just not. They don't have the ceiling that like. I mean, Shabbatov has that ceiling. It really depends on.
It just depends what the floor is. Yeah.
First of all, do they give him fucking power play time? Because apparently, right now they have him on PP2. Frankly, I don't understand why you still.
He's one of those guys that I assume if he pops, he'll get there. I think I've noticed a lot of coaches don't start young players high up early, and they have to work their way through the roster. And you'll notice like 30 games, 35 games in, they take that spot and just run with it, kind of thing.
But at this point, like if you're the Islanders, like what do you have to lose by starting? Like, do you really gain anything from like playing Palmieri and Drouin up there? Probably not, right?
Hey man, every team goes in with the intention of like very few teams are okay, especially again Patrick Waugh. Like he probably assumes he's coaching for his job to an extent too. Right?
He is coaching for his job, but again, probably a job that he's not going to hold on to for much longer. But I think you and I both know that he's. Like, should we start a countdown?
I've just seen it so many times, right? Again, Kyle Dubas did it with Mike Babcock, right? Like, we see it all the time where when a GM comes in and the existing coach is there, it's not long. Like, the coach has to ball out for the GM to not get rid of him. So, like, it's just always.
Well, in Babcock's case, don't do shitty things to your players. That's the other thing. I don't think. And then, unfortunately, was kind of going up that. Like, obviously, with what happened with Duclair, I think. So
but I'd say they do always end up getting their own guy. Like Dubas was Keefe was Dubas's own guy, right?
Yeah.
Darsh, it'll probably be some guy who like was in the coaching system in Tampa or whatever. Like
probably
even
one of their coaches or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even like an AHL coach or something. I don't know who's in their system or whatnot, but it's probably gonna be someone from the system there.
Yeah, like when Mike Greer he hired Todd Warsofsky, who was the AHL coach for. It's just good. It's gonna be. It happens all the time. Like you just have to accept it. It is what it is, and it's within their right to do so. If you're gonna be paid that money, you want to go out on your sword, and one of your own swords is hiring a guy you're familiar with. You've gone in the trenches with before. Like that's perfectly fine.
That's fair.
All right. Moving on to the okay. So the team you had fifth. Who did you have?
Okay, I don't know if people are gonna give me shit for this, but I had the New York Rangers at 5.
I did too. Okay, all right.
Okay, so this is this is one of those ones where there's so much talent in this team that I was like, surely you can't have them finishing 5th, right? But the closer and closer I looked at this team, man, it feels like apart from the talent, there's just nothing else there. So I'll break it down for you guys. I'll actually start with the back end because I think that's probably the easiest thing to start with.
Well, so let's kind of talk about what the team did last year before hiring Mike Sullivan, right? They made Shesterkin play out of his mind. Like they were 30th in expected goals against, but they were only 19th in actual goals against, which tells you how much lifting Shesterkin had to do.
And they were also 25th in high danger chances against. So they basically just left their goalies.
And 27th in shots against. Yeah.
Yeah. So they left their goalies out to dry. And oh look, what do they have? The 28th ranked power play too. So yeah, we're not going to give you much support on the power play either.
What's interesting is I think the first thing we have to talk about is Mike Sullivan going to implement a similar system to what he used last year in Pittsburgh, or will it be different? Because I think that's the main thing. Because if this team is just going to double down on, again, giving up high danger chances but pressing their own offense, I'm not sure that's going to work. But weirdly, I don't know what alternative they have. Because when I look at this team, like, yes, the top 2 forward lines are really fucking good. Let's start with there. Like, by any metric, any line with Panarin on it was good last year. And now you have, again, and Miller, obviously, any line with him on it was really good last year too. Now you have those two together. You might have them together. You might have them as separate lines. Doesn't matter. Trocheck's a really good number 2 center. A really good, like, almost an overqualified number 2 center. When you talk about defensive play plus the ability to produce offense, Miller's one of the more. He's a little bit of a defensive liability because overall he's a pretty well-rounded center himself. And there's a good balance of type of players, right? Panarin as like a playmaking wing. You have some physicality there on those lines as well with Miller.
With Miller and Trocheck.
With Trocheck, exactly. And it's just a good mix of guys that it's like if you just asked me on those two lines, could this team make the playoffs? I would say yes, because there's a chance those two lines just ball out. And there again, it's the right mix of vets, it's the right mix of playmaking, it's the right mix of physicality between Ziba, Trocheck, and Miller. Lafreniere, again, he profiles as a power forward, doesn't play like a power forward, but there is that potential there. Like these two lines, and then if Will Cooley slots in the top 6, that's another thing there.
Well,
the problem
Cooley
is
really good. Cooley looked really good in like last year when he did play. Like he didn't he was close to 2 shots a game. I do expect that if he gets a bit more opportunity, he gets up there. 45 points. He's very physical too, so he gives them another like kind of physical element across their lines because I think they have enough talent across all their lines. So it's nice to have a guy that willing to do the dirty work, wants to forward check and is quite physical, right? So it kind of helps balance out with the rest of the talent. The problem is, which I think you're going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about briefly, is the defense. Like that's
I was going to say the bottom 6. Nothing's figured out.
Well,
look at the bottom too. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. But the bottom 6, nothing's figured out on this roster. Like there's a bunch of question marks. Like the depth scoring. And this is my theme for this team was I used a Ninja Turtles reference. I said it's top heavy, but will they bebop or rock steady? I don't know because this team, like the top end of this team, is really fucking good. The problem is the depth on forward, and we'll talk about the depth on defense, is just a bunch of question marks. Like if I look at the way Daily Faceoff has projected their top 6, outside of Cooley, it's a bunch of question marks. There's like Rempe, who's basically an AHL NHL transition guy. Carrick, Parsonen, Hoffman, Edstrom. It's like
face-off. I think they have Cooley in the top 6 right now, right? Or are you looking at
right now? Okay,
yeah,
maybe it updated more recently. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So, but it's the bottom 6 though.
I think that actually
that makes it worse because it's guys like Taylor Radish, Gabe Perreault, Adam Edstrom, Matt Rempe. Like it's a bunch of question marks. And if you notice, some of the teams that get through the regular season pretty well. Unless you have like a McDavid Draisaitl level talent, or teams with good balanced depth scoring, and especially for an 84-game season, I just don't see that here. And there's a lot of question marks as to whether these guys, and forget, it's not just the wings, it's the centers too. There's a lot of questions as to whether they're going to get enough supplementary scoring outside of the top 6. And you can touch on the defense here if you'd like, but that was one of my main concerns when I first looked at this roster.
Yeah, like I mean, I did look at the bottom 6, and I did have some concerns. Also, I do think even with the younger guys that do have potential, like I think Gabe Perreault, for example, like they're gonna need him to step up. I think I've read that they plan to start him at Hartford, so he's gonna probably not be there at the start of the year, right? So you already lose that, and then again,
this is a team that could use Roslovich.
The most.
Funnily enough, this is a team that could also use Marcus Pettersson as well, because we'll talk about the defense right now if you want to go into it.
Yeah, I'll go into the defense. So their defense is, again, it's the same. It's actually kind of the same boat. It is very top heavy. So their first pairing is Fox and Gavrikov.
Might be the best pairing in the league.
It could be.
If Fox bounces back to Norris form, it's the best pairing in the league because you have one of the best defenders by any analytics and eye test last year in Gavrikov, and you have Fox, who again at his peak is a Norris winning defenseman,
elite offensive defenseman, right? So that pairing is fine. The problem is with the rest of their four defensemen. It just feels like they have the rest of the 4 defensemen are just all bottom 6 defensemen, right? So like Carson Soucy's more suited to be a bottom 6 defenseman. Same with Will Borgen, Vakanainen, same thing. I think he was the one that came over in the Kreider trade? No, wait, I don't know which trade so. It might have been the Kreider trade. So
Kreider or Trouba, one of the two.
Trouba, one of the two. Sorry, one of the Ducks trades, quote unquote. We'll just make that easier. And then Braden Schneider, who while they have a lot of belief in him. They did put him in a lot of sheltered minutes, which I don't know if that is kind of a counter to the belief, because you get what I mean. Like if you believe in a guy, you give him more opportunity. Whereas if you're gonna shelter a guy, I feel like that doesn't exactly scream belief in him. But I guess if they have faith in him, fair enough. But even if let's say Schneider plays up to the level of a top 4 defenseman, this defensive core is just ass.
But the other problem too, besides even if he does, he's a defensive defenseman primarily. The other problem too is which. I had a kind of problem with the K. Andre Miller trade for this reason. if Fox doesn't return to Norris level form, there's huge questions as to where the other playmaking and puck mobility is going to come on this defensive core. Because outside of Fox, there isn't a capable offensive defenseman as of yet on this entire roster. Yes, did Borgen show a decent amount in a very small sample size? Yeah, and Chris Drury obviously gave him extension after that because that's what Chris Drury does. But there's not a proven offensive guy on this, on this back end aside from Fox. And when you look at really good teams, they have at least two of those guys. Like, again, the Stars have Heiskanen and Harley. The Avs have Makar and Taves. The Jets have Pionk and Morrissey. This is just me going through the Central, right? Even like a team like Utah has Sergachev and Jersey, guys who are capable puck-moving defensemen, multiple on the back end of a roster. And right now, Fox is the only one. And again, if Fox had a bit of a decline compared to what he normally does, if he doesn't bounce back to Norris form, there is a whole lack of offensive production that's just not here.
Well, it's not even a lack of. They just don't like. I know non-existent, but it's actually just non-existent. Like it's just straight up non-existent. No, they don't have a puck mover. And then the problem is again, they're not good. None of these guys like you'd at least hope they're good defensively. Like at least in the Islanders' case, like none of those, all their guys are all really defensive. But at least some of them are like okay-ish defensively. None of these guys are good defensively. So it's like, what are they? What are they there? They're literally just. I'm gonna call them just clones of Cody Ceci to me.
I mean, the other issue, too, is, like, my question I had with this team, too, is will they allow Shesterkin to shoulder less of the load? And, again, Gavrikov helps, obviously, in top pairing minutes, but the other 40 minutes...
They're still going to be ass. Like, there's going to be ass.
Like, I just... And don't get me wrong, just while the surface numbers tell you Shesterkin had down year, if you look at every advanced number, he was insane relative to...
he was top 10 in goal save above. He was 7th in goal save above expected. So it tells you, like, how well he played in spite of the Rangers just giving
like the Shesterkin quick pairing has been good for a couple years. It's fine. It's great. No issues with it. It's just I do wonder whether allow him to shoulder less of the load. And again, it's weird because do I like the Mike Sullivan system where it's just like where it was last year in Pittsburgh where it's fun and gun? No, but might it be the best fit for this roster?
Yes,
possibly. So it's like I kind of understand, the best fit,
right? Because at least you have a goaltender that's talented enough to handle it, right? The problem is, ideally, you want to give him some help, and at least your top end talent's good enough to fun and gun, right? The problem is like this will either work out spectacularly or it's going to fail miserably. I think that there's. I'd be higher on this team if the bottom six was a bit better. But it's just like, when you look at the teams ahead of them, there's just a lot more depth and forward lines on the other teams that I just like a lot better, where maybe they don't have a Fox, but at least like the depth on the team overall. They don't have a Fox. They I feel like all the other teams that we're going to talk about all at least have
don't have a Panarin.
Frankly. Well, they have two or more capable puck moving defensemen. They also have enough like forward depth spread around like at least through their first three lines, right? Like they may not have the elite superstar talent, but they still have a couple of really, really good guys.
Mm-hmm. So that's why I had them here. Look, could you tell me the superstars just ball out and Shesterkin has another Vezina level year and they get to third or second? Sure, like I could believe that 100%. It's just right now, based on the lack of depth on this team, I just have them here for now. And like you said, it's a bit controversial, but I couldn't put them higher. I just couldn't.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they were looking at this Rangers team, they're gonna obviously point out the talent level, right? Because this is theoretically one of the most talented teams in the division, right? Like you have superstars in Panarin, Shesterkin, like Miller in his own right is pretty good. Zibanejad, even though he's kind of moved to the wing, like he's still like he looked better on the wing than he did at center last year, right? And then Trocheck is is probably a lot better than most second line centers, I'd say, in this
100%
too, right? Yeah. The problem is, apart from that, there is literally nothing. And then obviously Fox and Gavrikov, but then after that, there's nothing else. There's literally nothing else.
Gonna have to recruit more Russians in the offseason. All right, my X factor here is Alex Lafreniere. Look, every year, I'm just gonna say this: every year, there's been an excuse for why he hasn't performed the way he should. There's no excuses this year. You have first line deployment, you have first line power play deployment. There is no excuses to playing time. There's no excuse to nothing. There's also no excuses to like, oh, he's too young, it's too early. This is his fourth year in the league now.
Might be his fifth at this point, fourth or fifth at this point. Like he's 20, he's 24, 25. Like he's basically 23, 24 at this point. Like there's no excuses. You were the first overall pick.
You were an undisputed, like, there wasn't like, oh, maybe we should take so and so ahead of him. It was basically the Alex Lafreniere sweepstakes at the time that the Rangers won. You have first line and first power play. You have a really good center with you, regardless of if it's going to be Trocheck or Miller. And you have a good playmaking wing opposite you, whether it's going to be Zebo or it's going to be Panarin. There's no excuse this time. You have to ball out. Like, I expect at least 35 goals. Because if that doesn't happen...
Ice time, check. Elite talent around you, check. I mean, it takes all...
And an offensive system that if Sullivan brings it over from Pittsburgh is going to be fun and gun. Like, there's no excuse for you not to hit 35 goals this year. Does it sound lofty? Yes, but those are the expectations when you're number one and you have all the talent and all the deployment around you.
Yeah.
Did you have any other X factors? That has to be the one, right? Like, everyone else is...
Yeah, he's probably the biggest one. I can't count Shesterkin as an X factor. He played well last year.
He's so good.
He was so good even with the aspect.
What's the X factor? We need you to put us on our back for the third season in a row?
Like, we need you to turn... Apparently it's going to be we need you to turn into Dominik Hasek, apparently. That's probably the only... I mean, maybe he does. And
if Dominik Hasek had that top six... They might have beaten Dallas in the Cup Finals that year. So, I don't know, man.
They honestly could have.
Knock on wood.
Although I will argue that it is tough when the other guy you're facing in Belfour is also pretty fucking good, too.
Who's Buffalo's number one center to them on Michael Pekka? I think there was, right? Yeah, Michael Pekka, Miro Shatan were their first... I think their first line was Groshek, Shatan, Pekka or something like bro, something ridiculous. What are we even talking about?
Something just ass. It was just ass. Mm-hmm. And their best offensive defenseman was it Jason Woolley or whatever?
Or was it Zhitnik, maybe? One of them?
I don't remember, but I remember Woolley was the only name.
Eric Rasmussen, maybe?
I don't know.
All right, moving on to... So, I always have this rule when you do division previews. I always have either 3 or 4 in, 3 or 4 outs. Because each year, if you notice the playoffs, it's not the same teams every year. There's going to be teams that cycle in, teams that cycle out of the playoffs. Every year, it just happens. One of the new teams I had making the playoffs is a team I had in 4th here. I have Columbus. And honestly, I was going to put them 3rd. It's just the only thing holding me back was just their X factor is just so much more of an X factor than like all these other teams.
Well, I think, yeah. So I had Columbus here too. And I did debate moving them up as high. Okay, so you'll call me crazy. Like the way I see it is they could finish anywhere between, I think, like you're going to laugh.
2nd and 5th.
I said 2nd through 6th. I said it could get really bad if things just go really bad. But they can go anywhere between 2nd and 6th. That's the scary part, right? Like this team has the offense. Like we showed that we didn't think they had. Apparently, we didn't think they had it last year. But
there's no metric. Like my theme for this team was: can the offense and Jet Greaves carry this team to the playoffs? Because like again, we talk about it. You look at every offensive metric last year: 7th in goals for, 10th in shots for, 11th in expected goals.
Yeah,
like 7th in high danger chance for, and that's with mediocre to bad special teams. So like their 5-on-5 was impressive.
That's also with injuries to like some of their key guys. Like when they lost Monahan, like somehow Fantilli stepped in and their offense was still fine. You notice there was a drop off, but it was still really good given what happened, right?
Like I wrote here, the offense has the potential to be stupid. I wrote this in like quotes, stupid good, because when you look at it, it's like their top 9 is such a good mix of players. So you have Monahan, Fantilli, you have Coyle. Coyle's a good quality third center. You have guys that do different, and they're guys that do different things. Like Monahan's a well-rounded, was near point per game last year. Just comes down to can he stay healthy. Fantilli showed you when he has the deployment what he could do, and there is a potential that he takes a leap this year. And then when you look at the wingers, it's like the right mix of guys that can shoot and score like Marchenko and Veronka, playmaking guys like Kent Johnson, an all-around guy like Boone Jenner, who can also fill in on the third line in a pinch. And then guys like again, other upside,
like grit too, some grit too, right? So
and like Cole Sillinger, who has some upside as well, who can also move into a wing slot if needed. There's just like it's the depth the Rangers don't have. It's like this offense has the potential to be insane. And again, we're talking about a team like we mentioned. Marchenko had like an injury and was like ineffective for like a little bit here and there. Monahan was out. Monahan was out for most of the second half. Jenner was out for most of the first half. If this team's offense is healthy and the power play picks up from, say, 22nd, I think it was last year, there's no reason this team can't be like a top 8 offense, potentially, especially combined with the Werenski. The issue we talk about is the defense, because the defense is a huge question mark outside of Werenski and Fabro. And Fabro was pretty good last year. Like, you mentioned it when we talked about it. They struggled to ice 6 competent defensemen last year consistently.
Yeah. And I think for their defense, there's going to be a lot of... So, Werenski and I think the pairing of Werenski and I always forget who their other guy is. Hold on, pull it up.
Fabro.
I think it's Fabro, yeah. So Fabro's actually, like, it's funny because Fabro went on waivers at one point and Columbus eventually got. It's funny how he turned out because he's been a really good, like, supplement to, like, Werenski, right?
Yeah, he's been a really good secondary with Werenski for sure.
Yeah, Werenski can kind of take his chances, like, pinch and do whatever, play that offensive style he's good at. And then Fabro, like, covers well for him defensively. So I think a lot of it will come down to I think it's going to be, like, Denton Matejchuk. Will he kind of anchor that
add a second quality, yeah.
Because I think people forget,
like,
he made the all-rookie team. Like
did he actually?
Playing 44. Yeah, he made the all-rookie. It was him and Lane Hudson.
Oh, shit.
So he was
I didn't know that. Okay,
again, I think it speaks volumes to how good he was that he made it despite, I don't know if it's maybe the lack of options, maybe potentially. It could be that, but he made it only playing 44 games. And you notice his offensive game, like, took a bit of a step towards the end of the year. Like, he didn't put up much offense, but you notice the skating. He's good defense. He's really good defensively for a guy who's as young as he is. And I think he could anchor that second pairing. So the defense, at least they might be able to ice 3 competent defensemen this year.
Yeah.
And then I think
like,
we talked
about...
I had
here, like, as one of my question marks, can Denton Matchuk add a quality second defensive exit player and second defensive playmaker, to your point? Because the skating's there, the defensive play's there, and, like, and you see the potential for, like, zone exits with him. Because the rest of this team, we talked about it, Damon Severson, healthy scratch a lot of times last year. Ivan Provorov's Ivan Provorov is what we call an innings eater. So for people that don't, it's like your 4th and 5th starter on a baseball team that you know will give you 170. He's Miles Mikolas, basically, right? He'll give you 170 innings. Will they all be quality? Probably not.
No.
But he plays, right? Eric Goodbranson, kind of a worse version, but the same idea. And, like, can I say, for a team, they did pretty well despite having 3 of the worst defensive. Well, now with Provorov, they'll have potentially 3 of the worst defensive contracts in the league.
I had so much hope for this team until I saw that Provorov.
Like, Severson, Goodbranson, and Provorov, if you were to rank the 10 worst defensive contracts in the league, they have to at least be like 3 of them, right?
They're all somewhere in that top 10. I don't know. I almost wonder if Provorov might even get to number 1, but, like, they're probably worse, but, like, he's probably, like, in the top 3 or 4 for me, worst contract.
So yeah, like, they need Matechuk to really be that second guy in the middle, and the second and third. But he's
shown the flashes, though, so I think that's why I'm a little bit more confident. He's showing a ton of flash, and I think he will probably take that step this year. And
then the other big
talk about the goaltending, right?
The biggest question is, you know, who is Jet Greaves, right? Like, at the end of the day,
who is Jet Greaves? What is Jet Greaves?
Again, I don't normally overreact to small sample sizes, but he was just so good last year, it made me turn my head like that meme where, you know, that guy is walking with the girl and looking at the other girl. That was me looking at Jet Greaves like, wait, what is going on here? And, like, the thing with Columbus is
Hasek-esque number. Those are literally, like, Hasek-esque
we don't
numbers, right?
Yeah, we don't know what the ceiling of was. Could he be like peak Thatcher Demko? Could this just be a blip? It's all possible. We don't know. But we do know he's going to be the 1A starter on this team. And the funny thing about Columbus, and this is why I had them 4th, they just need average goaltending to be a playoff team. And we talked about this. Like, their goaltending's been bad for, like, the last 3 years. And last year was bad, too, with Tarasov and Mersleskins. And they were still right on the borderline playoff. They need him to be, like...
It came down to game 82. It essentially came down to game 82 if they made the playoffs or not, right? And if Jet Greaves gives them average goaltending, they make the playoffs. If he plays even a little bit better than average, like, this team... I mean, could even sneak. I could even say gets, like, what would you say, like, 3rd?
If he played like Lucas Dostal did last year, this is like a 3 seed, easy. Like, if like, you know what I mean? And it's just, we don't know what again, because the sample size is so small but so good, we don't know what the range of outcomes is. But all this team needs is average goaltending, and if their offense stays healthy, this is easily a playoff team. And this is why I had to have them in 4th. Just if the offense and if Jet Greaves plays like anything close to what he did at the end of last year, and the offense just even stays the same, and everyone's just healthy, this is a playoff team. There's no question.
You know what's funny? I was looking at some of their moves, and I saw they made that trade for Fedotov, but then I saw they waived him, so I'm like, oh, at least they have some, like, semblance of, at least they have some common sense. I was like, Jesus Christ. It's like, why are you acquiring this? So, because You probably thought the same thing when I sent you. I don't know if I sent it to you.
Yeah, and then they waived him like a day ago, right?
And I'm like, yes, let's go. I'm like, it's the Jet Greaves. I was like, please don't play Fedotov and Mersleskins. I was just praying, please don't do that. I was like,
no,
not
Jet
like
Greaves,
this.
and because of that, again, because I don't think I'm not again. You could say Matachuk, but I don't know how Jet Greaves is a bigger X factor.
X factor is Jet Greaves. Look,
he's the.
Because the way I see it is. Okay, you want to go ahead? You go first.
No, I was gonna say he is like one of the biggest swing. We talked about it before. One of the biggest swing guys in the league. Depending on how his pendulum goes, there's a lot that could happen in this league. Where like I said, there's no, if he's what he was last year in a longer sample size, this is a 2 seed.
Yeah, I think the other thing I'll point out too is like you saw Columbus. They almost made the playoffs with like shitty defense and shitty goaltending last year, right? So like,
which is impressive.
If Matejchuk plays a little bit better, sure, the defense looks a little bit better. It's nice, but they probably won't make the playoffs if their goaltending is still ass, right? So I think again, that's why Jet Greaves is the X factor. Is if he plays well, then this team is a surefire playoff team. Even if Matejchuk's not that great, and they still only have 2 good defensemen on their roster.
Yeah. So, and luckily for him, he doesn't have to play amazing. He just has to be decent, which is great.
It's gonna be. I'm not gonna lie. We've hyped him up so much. It's gonna be disappointing if he just
so interesting. It's gonna be so interesting to see how it happens. So Yahoo has him projected for like a 905 save percentage. I think from what I saw on Fantasy.
Bro, if he's 910, like this team is going second. I'm not gonna lie.
This is like
go second seed if he goes.
This is the team I'm like the most interested in watching. Maybe it's because I wrote them off last year and then they shocked me. But the more I started watching this team, because I was curious as to why. Like, they're such a fun team to watch, and there's so much, there's a lot here. And I know it's because Columbus, and no one gives a fuck about Columbus in general, but I'm telling you, like, this is my most interesting non-central team by far to me.
Also, if their special teams improves even a little bit, like, they're gonna be, again, a better team.
There's a lot of ways they can be a playoff team, and it's not like they have to improve dramatically. It's just like incremental and health is fine. That's it.
Well, incremental, but I would hope the goaltending is not incremental. I hope that's like a massive improvement.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, you know, even like an incremental like increase in their goaltending might get them there because again, they missed out by 1 point last year, 1 or 2 points.
Yeah.
Like those couple points might end up making the difference this year.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting for sure. All right, moving on to the 3 seed again. A little bit of a bounce back. A step back, but still a playoff team. I have the
Capitals?
Washington Capitals.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I kind of spoiled
their shooting percentage was just insane last year, and that's going to regress. But
I have a lot of guys that will regress, right? I think Tom Wilson's going to regress. I think he shot like 19% last year, and then Dylan Strome was like in the 20s. Like it just isn't sustainable given their career averages are like mid 10s kind of guys, right? So it's going to decline a bit. And I don't know. Also, I guess maybe you have a question mark with Thompson too, right? I guess like, does he keep up that play?
Well, overall though, like I think I do like this team as a whole because they are doing this transition tightrope where again they're doing a way better job than Pittsburgh did. Where Pittsburgh, the old guard versus the new guard coming in, they're kind of the opposite of the Rangers. This team is the high end talent amazing? No, but there's depth and physicality just everywhere on the forward lines, right? Like. There are 3 centers, like, again, Strome, Dubois, McMichael. That's a solid group that you can, that's a solid group of 3 centers, right? And then you look at the wings. You have Ryan Leonard, again, physical. Tom Wilson, physical. Ovechkin, physical. Protas, like, again, growing into it, but physical, right? Like, it's a physical, grind-you-out team that plays, like, they kind of play like I don't want to say a poor man's Panthers in a way, but that's kind of what they try to do. And then if I look at the defense, it's a nice mix of like play. It's a good mix of depth there, right? You talk about each pairing has like a Sandin, Chychrun, Carlson, and then they're a mix of like offensive playmaking guy who can puck move, and then you have Matt Roy who's a good, decent defensive defenseman. It's depth all around, and depth is what a lot of times gets you through the regular season, unless you're Edmonton. Like it's true.
I had to laugh at that. Just like again, not shots fired.
And I think like when I look at this team, it's the depth and physicality everywhere that'll get them through the regular season. I think they'll be fine as a playoff team. The question marks I had though was I think they do need a forward or two to take a leap, just because again I feel like they're going to take a step back, but maybe the way they stay as a top 2 seed is maybe a Dubois, McMichael, Protas. One of these guys takes a leap forward that we're not expecting.
Well, they have
and
a few
then
guys
you
that could
mentioned
take a
this.
leap, right? There's a few guys that could take a leap. So I think they have this Ivan Miroshchenko guy. Again, first round pick from a few years ago. He could take a leap. I think Ryan Leonard. Leonard was a top 10 pick too, right? I don't know if you know, but Leonard was a top 10.
Possibly.
He was a top 10 pick, so like he could take that leap.
Okay.
Like this might be his first. It's technically his rookie year because he didn't play that many games last year after coming out of college, so he could take that leap. So and then McMichael again. McMichael looked good last year. Could he take another step this year? So there's a bunch of guys that can take a leap too. And I think on defense, like they have a puck moving defenseman pretty much on every single one of their pairings, right? Like Carlson, Sandin, and then Chychrun's fucking overqualified to be your third pairing defenseman.
Yeah, no, 100%. I do think they consolidate that eventually. But then, Ferravari's, just a physical, he's just annoying to deal with. And then Matt Roy's a good defensive defenseman. I think the only question I have is, again, what's the upside of those guys? And two, and as it relates to goaltending, can Logan Thompson increase his workload without a dip in performance or injury? Because, don't get me wrong, Thompson, when he played, was really good, but he hasn't played a high volume of games. And there is a difference between him and Charlie Lindgren starting.
Yeah,
I know Lindgren had that 1 year, but
Lindgren was league average goalie last year, right? So your goaltending, there's a drastic difference between league average goaltending and then absolute elite goaltending, which is kind of what. And I'm not going to say that's what they needed, but they kind of needed that last year.
And when I pull up Logan Thompson's games played, it's similar to the Aiden Hill. I call it the Aiden Hill corollary, where it's he hasn't had a large again, the max games he's ever played in a season was 46, right? Last year was 43, and it kind of reminds me of
it's funny because Hill and Thompson played together, so it's funny. It's kind of funny.
Yeah,
the two guys you mentioned.
It's together, right now he's kind of worse Ben Bishop in a way. Where if you remember, Ben Bishop only played with the Stars 40 something games, but those numbers were just groundbreakingly elite. Thompson's numbers are really good, but they're in a very small sample. Again, basically a 1A, 1B platoon.
Also, there were stretches last year, too, where Thompson was kind of cold. I don't know if you noticed, but towards
he was.
There were
he started Vezina level good and then cooled. And I think that's where the 9-10 save percentage kind of balances out.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. I just want to see, can he get to at least 50? Because I think if again, this team depth is good enough to get them to the regular season of playoff spot. I just see the upside being if one of those guys can take a leap, or if Thompson can maybe get to 50 games, 55, and keep the performance similar, then there's an increase in potential there. But overall, I just think it's a solid, they don't have as many question marks as Columbus does. Again, the depth is what it is. So I think they're just a solid playoff team, nothing more, nothing less this year. And Carberry's a really good coach, so he's going to maximize whatever talent he does have. So I'm not really worried there.
So is your X Factor one of the three guys?
No, it's Dylan Strome.
Okay, you're gonna go
Dylan Strome last year. Okay, let me do the breakdown for people here. So Dylan Strome, since he got to Washington, has been 0.87 points per game. He's been a quality faceoff. He's been a good number one center. But last year, he took a leap from and you could say shooting percentage, sure. But his shooting percentage since he got to Washington has been 16.7%. So, yes, his 19.5 dramatic a bit, but it's not going from 10 to 19, right? Just as an example. But last year he made a leap from
kind of thing,
yeah. Last year he made it going from 0.82 to point per game. If he can stay at point per game or near 0.9 something, now you have a first line, a rock first line center, and the pedigree's there, right? We're talking about a guy who was right after McDavid and Eichel, who's maybe now starting to live up to the billing. Who knows, right? But you have that guy. If he's a point per game center, everything starts to just fall in line with the rest of his roster. Because now you have PLD as based on how he played last year, could be an overqualified second line center. McMichael might be an overqualified third line guy, and the wing talent is good enough to because Dylan Strome's not necessarily an overtly physical guy, and he's not the greatest defender. You have enough wing talent to maximize what he can do as well, which is be that playmaker that he's been since he got to Washington. But if he can stay at a point per game guy, I think that's the X factor, because then all of a sudden you have that guy.
So I went a little bit differently with my X factor. So we talked about, this team's going to take a step. It's probably going to take a step back. That's the way we look at it right now. If they
they won the President's Trophy, didn't they?
Well, if they want to avoid taking that step back. So I had my X factor as Ryan Leonard because because they need one of those three
Okay,
guys
let's
to
hear
step up offensively. So he's the top 10 pick, so he has the prospect pedigree. He came into the league for those couple of games, and he played a little bit in the playoffs. He was quite physical, so he at least has that physicality to his game. And obviously, being a top 10 pick, his scoring pedigree should be up there, and they're going to need him to take that kind of step, right? Because it looks like they are moving Tom Wilson kind of down to the third line, which again really helps kind of balance their lines, and it gives Washington kind of three really, really good. If Leonard takes that step, they have three really good lines. Because if you're playing Tom Wilson and Connor McMichael on your third fucking line, I apart from the Florida Panthers, I can't think of another team that has, or maybe Dallas, I guess, but even my point is you can't name another team with that good of a third line or that much talent on your third line.
Yeah.
Right. And Leonard, I mean,
probably Dallas or a healthy Florida would be the two.
Yeah, Dallas or healthy Florida, but in this case, okay, well, not spoiler alert, but some stuff has happened since then, so that's maybe not quite the case now. But so yeah, but again, it's Dallas. That's ironically your team, but that's the only team you can think of that might have this much kind of forward depth. Now the issue is if Leonard doesn't hit that, then you have to move Wilson. Then Wilson might have to move up, and then your third line kind of takes a hit because there's already question marks about that Miroshchenko guy too. So it's and then their fourth line is just kind of meh. So your fourth line is kind of just meh at this point. But if Leonard takes that step, he plays a second line guy. Man, if he even gets to first line status, that'd be crazy. But the point is, if he can push it further up the lineup, he can push guys further down, and then Washington just has so much depth that they can kind of be that. We called them the poor man's kind of Florida Panthers. Essentially, would you say it's fair to say poor man's Florida Panthers? They're not just going to be the poor man's version, but they're a slightly better poor man's version at that point.
Even when you look at their advanced numbers, Jesse, let's take away the goals for, goals against, right? But it's the expected goals for, expected goals against was 8th and 14th. So while they weren't, again, they were still solid team overall, and they play a very aggressive physical style, and they do use the forecheck, not to the same level as Florida, because when Florida does it, it's like watching a vortex in a positive way.
It's suffocating. Florida's more suffocating, but yeah.
Right. But Washington, not suffocating, but a bit more physical, at least through the lineup. I know Florida has some lines that are very physical, but I think consistently probably a bit more Washington. But overall, yeah, I think this team, and here's the thing with this team I like too, I trust the infrastructure. Brian McClellan and Spencer Carberry are a good GM head coach combo. And I think that is something I also have to take into effect when they build this roster together. Is I do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what moves have they made that they whiffed on? Would you say? The Thompson move was a grand slam and a half. The
Sandin and Chychrun moves were really good. Matt Roy has been really good. Dubois, that ended up being a win-win for both parties, which was interesting. At least so far. This is a team.
I'd argue it's a bigger win for Washington because you get the younger player technically too, right? So it might be a bigger.
Oh no! If there's one thing LA likes, it's older vets. So I think they're fine.
Fair enough.
But I also think about transitioning from a team where Backstrom's career was ended shorter than they expected, and they expected to have Ovechkin and Backstrom basically for a long period of time, right? And that didn't happen. And then you think about some of the other guys in their teams like Mike Green, whose career was ended a little bit early, his peak was ended a bit earlier by injuries than expected. This goes back a bit, but my point being is they transitioned from that Ovechkin, that Ovechkin Holtby team to what Backstrom, Ovechkin, Holtby to what it is now, which is really impressive.
Yeah,
all right.
I don't know if you remember, but I think before they barely made the playoffs that 1 year, but they had
the worst goal differential in the league, for a playoff team.
Awful.
Yeah.
They went from I think was it that to President's Trophy team essentially, or close to that's crazy. Just the kind of turnaround they had.
Yeah.
So they have the coaching infrastructure. They have their GM has apparently. I mean, it's not Bill Zito not Bill Zito-esque, but I mean pretty close. I'd say if you're gonna find another guy, he's the second closest guy to that. So.
Pretty much. All right, moving on to the next team. I had Carolina second. Thoughts?
Okay, interesting. Okay, I had Carolina first. So
okay.
So that means we know. Okay.
Yeah. So let's talk about Carolina first. Then, to me, I mean this with all due respect, they're the most boring team to talk about in this division by far. Can I explain why, if I may? So they perfected a regular season system despite the lack of talent on this roster. You look at this team, this is an analytic wet dream. They're like, forget the 9th in goals for, 10th in goals against, because that can be their underlying metrics to that. 2nd in shots for, 1st in shots against, 6th in expected goals for, 10th in expected goals against, special teams. 1st on the power play, 10th on the penalty kill. Like, that is crazy. That is, like, for people to understand that, and if you look at the numbers and the way they shoot, they basically played.
Did you say 1st on the power play?
Did I read it wrong?
Okay, they're 1st in the penalty kill. That I can.
Maybe that's okay. Maybe I flipped it around. I think.
Yeah, then I think their power play is actually 25th, but that's the
one thing
they have against them apparently. Unless I'm
okay, but overall, like, sure. Let me go back here, but. 2nd in shots for, 1st in shots against, 6th in expected goals for, 10th in expected goals against. Like, this team they have a system where they're just constantly firing pucks at the net regardless of location. And if you look at their shot tracking metrics, this actually bears this out, because people that don't know, NHL Edge does a really good thing with team, identifying where team shots on goal happen. So, interestingly enough, if you look at Carolina, let me pull this up here quickly. So Carolina's.
Are you just gonna okay?
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you want to share it or no? It's up to you. You can just tell.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. Okay. No, look, and for people that don't know, like, one thing I like doing is, again, making people more aware. So NHL Edge does this great job of identifying, again, where teams are shooting, right? So you can kind of break it down by volume of shots too. So high danger, 87th percentile. Mid range, 87th percentile. Long range, 93rd percentile. So no matter what the range is, they're firing pucks from everywhere. And they hold possession as well. And then when they do that, you're not getting as many. So they're not aggressive. Again, they're not Florida where they're aggressively forechecking the heck out of you. They do play hard, but their possession and the ability to fire pucks on that and generate pressure is what kind of keeps you away from them in a way. And it reflects in their numbers. But they're an analytical dream. They don't give up a lot of chances 5-on-5. They generate a lot of chances 5-on-5. And they've done this system despite the talent that's come in and out of this roster. It's literally, that's why I say in the nicest way, they're the most boring team to talk about. They've perfected a regular season team. Even their percentiles, if I go back to offensive zone and defensive zone time, they're 99th percentile in both.
Yeah, I was gonna point out, this team is just like I think you mentioned analytical wet dream essentially, but this is pretty much.
They're like, let me go back. I think they have their. Let me see if they have their zones.
They're top 10 in pretty much every category apart from, and then I guess the only thing.
See, if you look at it here,
power play,
offensive zone 99th percentile, defensive zone 99th percentile. Like, this team knows, again, they're a Moneyball wet, like, they're Billy Bean's wet dream, like that. And they've made good moves. So they've added Ehlers, they've added Kandre Miller, they've added Nikishin. Now, I do have a couple questions, though, because while the depth I think I'll say this about them, the depth on the wings is really good, especially with the Ehlers addition. Like, if I look at this team on the wings, it's like the right mix of youth and veteran. Like, they have Ehlers and Jarvis.
Is your question mark the where's the goal scoring going to come from? Because that's kind of the question mark I had with this team. I don't know where the goal scoring is coming from.
I actually have 3 questions, funnily enough, with this team. So, though I think the wings, I'll say this, start off the bat, the wings are really good. Like, Martinook's a good third-line guy. Jackson Blake and Eric Robinson within the third or fourth line, wherever they end up, is great. I think Svech, Ehlers, Jarvis, and Hall. Like, Hall played really good with Columbus while he was there. I think that's fun. I think that's a good,
Carolina,
top 6.
Close enough. Yeah, don't
sorry, Carolina. Good top 6 group of forward wings. I do have the only questions I have is as their center. So, Aho, yes, he's a number 1 center. Granted, he had a bit of a dip offensively last year. We'll see if it's a blip or not. Who knows? But Aho is a good number 1 center. The issue is after him, there's a lot of unproven. I think Jordan Staal is your entrenched third-line center. Selke candidate, that's fine. The Kotkaniemi Stankoven potentially either being second line as your center is rough. Stankoven more so because there's a reason Dallas put him to the wing. One, obviously, Dallas had Wyatt Johnston, Duchesne, Hintz, right? That's one part. But the other thing, too, is there's 2 problems. One, Stankoven's not really a good shooter. So having him at center
he's also a smaller guy, too. And that doesn't help when you're a center. But, I mean, I think he did play center, and he played a lot of center.
He's a good hustle guy, but he's not... overtly physical. And again, I think defensively, people can take advantage of him as a center versus a wing. And the other thing too is I don't know if the playmaking is as of there yet, and the shooting's not, right? Good player overall, has potential, but there is some issues there. And I don't know what his ceiling is as a second line center. And then again, if Kotkaniemi is your second line center, it's even in a worse spot because at least we don't know what Stankoven is. We know what Kotkaniemi is. He's just a defense. He's basically a third line
for what 3 years, like 2-3 years now, and nothing's changed. Yeah.
You know what he is? He's a decent defensive center who can't really score or produce. Like, right? The other issue I have is we'll talk about the defense. Is outside of Slavin, there's a lot of question marks defensively regarding what this team's ceiling is because I think Slavin's one of the best, and it's the one-dimensional issue similarly to with the Isles, but just with a little bit more upside. So Slavin's an elite defensive defenseman. I think he's a guy who's routinely in top 10 D lists alone just based on how good he is defensively. But the problem is he's not an offensive playmaker. He's not a real puck-moving guy. He's not a scorer by any stretch. Shane Gostisbehere is strictly an offensive defenseman who's a defensive liability at this stage and power play guy. And Walker's, again, solid defensive defenseman, not generating much offensive upside. The real question marks are Keandre Miller and Alexander Nikishin, and what these guys are going to be for this team going forward. Because that's where the upside, like they need one of these two guys to generate into a good two-way defenseman. They need one of these guys to be that guy. Because I think this team's ceiling is so much more limited.
Like when I don't know if you remember, but when Miller was with New York, there was like that one season where we thought he was going to be that guy, and then like since then it just hasn't panned out, which is obviously why he got traded here to Carolina. So there's question marks with him there. I don't know if you also want Gostisbehere quarterbacking your power play for another year. Like he is literally the definition of an empty. Like he feels like an empty calorie kind of player, right? Like
he's like Eric Gustafsson, but better. Yeah.
Or like Matt Grzelcyk, like bottom pairing defensemen that are good in a pinch on power play one, but you ideally don't want them there, like for the long term. And then with Nikishin, it's like it really is question marks. We just haven't.
We don't know. I do think he has the most upside, but you do want him and Keandre to kind of start reaching that ceiling sooner rather than later because this is a cup contending team at the end of the day. The other thing too is, so again, while I think the defense is fine, like in terms of again the defensive play, it's like where's the offense going to come from on the back end? Because if it's not coming from the centers outside of Aho, and it's not coming from the back end outside of third pair and Gostisbehere, there's going to be some issues to how this team, again, outside of the system generate, because we know like the system will generate enough. It's just like to get that ceiling, which is kind of what you want in Carolina. You kind of need that, right?
Well, and I think for regular season purposes, though, it's okay. I think the issue you see it a lot more in the playoffs. I don't know if you like. Whenever I watch Carolina playoffs, I'm just like this team's offense just dries up in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, I think it dries up against elite teams, and I think and you saw it with like the Rangers, you saw it with the Panthers. It's just like at a certain point, you can't just over a 7-game series where the same team is playing you again and again and again. You can't just out-system your way to a win, right? Like, unfortunately. And then the other thing, too, is goaltending. There's a lot of questions regarding health and performance. Like, last year, not only did Kochetkov and Anderson not only were they not able to stay healthy, they weren't even that great. I think Anderson was 23rd in goal save above expected. Kochetkov was 28th. And granted, bear in mind, one only played 47 games and one played 22. So it wasn't like they were playing a ton of games either. And Carolina gives them one of the most beneficial situations that a team could have in terms of like a goalie could have in terms of having to see shots, how much like high danger chances you're facing, even shot volume and stuff like that. I think with the exception of the Florida series in the playoffs, like generally they're pretty good at mitigating chances.
So I think my concern with the goaltending is just more the health. Like was their goal where they rank in goal above expected isn't great, but I think because they're on such a good defensive team, it doesn't hurt them as much because they don't deal with that many chances. It is the health, right? Because Anderson, blood clot, this hurt here, that like the guys just had so many injuries, and like even Kochetkov too to an extent. Like he's not a super healthy goalie.
He's not durable,
right? So like if both of them go down, if one or both of them go down, which apparently seems to happen almost every single year, at least one of them goes down, then I think it might have happened once where they both went down at one, or they're both down at one point. They're gonna have questions there, but like when they are playing, they're fine. They're fine.
Anderson especially, like I'm not worried about Anderson. Kochetkov, I just don't think is that. I'll be honest, I don't think Kochetkov's that good. Like, I think he's fine. Like, I think he's like mid to bottom, like not bottom end, but like kind of that 20. If you're asking me starting goalies, maybe that like 19 to like 17 to 21 range.
17. I'm having more than 17.
Like,
Like
I think Anderson's better.
He is your average
Yeah.
starter, essentially. That is
Anderson's
what it
better,
is.
but just age and health with him at this point, right?
Yeah.
And then the last question I think is just a simple one. It's the guys coming up down years like Svech and Aho. Is this a blip or a trend? Because last year was a little bit, especially with Svech, I thought like it was very concerning to see how the way the numbers went down. But again, I don't know if it's a blip or trend. It's just something to watch out for because both their numbers did dip, and the numbers of this like some of the individual players did dip a bit. So I'm just kind of curious to see what happens there. I will also say another factor to consider in their regular season is this is a potential Mike McLeod Carter Hart team because they have been discussed and they both would fit.
Yeah, I mean they would. I mean they like Carolina badly needs some centers, right? Like because they don't know what Thanko's going to be, and in the case of Hart, like would it be nice to have a hopeful? I wouldn't say elite goalie, but like a really good starting goalie. Yes, because like the starting goalies you have are either average in Kachekov or they're good but Hurt and Anderson, right? Although I guess with the question marks of Carolina, even with all those question marks they had, like even because you saw all those issues last year, they still finished.
I have them second because the system's so good. Like the system just works.
No matter who that doesn't matter. I do think like if at least two of those questions get answered, like or one or two of them, like okay, if like let's say Aho and Svechnikov bounce back, like I'll go with that one because that one seems the most realistic option.
Realistic. Well, also if Nikishin maybe becomes a steady, like not elite, but like a decent one,
like a top 4 defenseman. Let's go top 4 defenseman to be safe. And I think this team will be like. The teams, I mean, they're at least guaranteed second, but I do see the path where they get to first because I guess
sure.
I guess we'll talk about it more when we talk about the Devils, but like maybe it's just me, but like with the Devils, like
we'll have the conversation.
Okay,
for sure.
Okay, I'll talk about. Okay,
but my X factor was Logan Stankoven, or whoever plays 2C is what I wrote.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it's either that or like I guess if you want to go Nikishin, I feel like if you want to go
Nikishin too, but I think the second line center is something they need to fix. Because it's been an issue for like a
second line center is a bigger issue than let's say top 4 defensemen. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, if Nikishin becomes top 2, that'd be nice, but I'm not gonna bet on that.
Exactly.
That doesn't seem like a very realistic bet.
Sorry, there. I had to take a quick bathroom break. So moving on to my number one, I guess, because you had the Canes. But my number one, your number two. I had the New Jersey Devils. Look, like, do the metrics make 100% sense? No. But to me, my theme with this team was like, this has to be the year they put it together, right? Like, this is the most talented team in this division. Without question.
Well, their team has a ton of talent. Their team has, like, a decent amount of talent, right? If you look across their forward lines, like, there's, like, their first 2 forward lines, like, their first line, their second line, they have two, they have 2 good forwards across every line, right? So they have Hughes and Bratt on line 1, and they have Heischer and Meyer on line 2. Now, there is a bit of a question mark because are they really going to play Evgeny Dadonov on line 1? And is Dawson Mercer good enough to be a second-line winger? That's to be determined. Don't know. But I think the first 4 guys are good enough to kind of carry the line that whoever you put there, you might kind of be able to get away with it. So, I mean, the scoring power is kind of there. I guess defense, I actually don't mind their defense at all. I like
their defense.
They do have a puck-moving defenseman on every pairing, too. So it's like Hamilton, Hughes, Nemec. And then Dylan's a good defensive defenseman. Pesci's a good defensive defenseman. Siegenthaler, when he's on his game, is a really good defensive defenseman.
Well, also there's upside too. There's still Seamus Casey, and there's still, again, you mentioned Nemec and Hughes. Those guys, again, former top 5 picks that can take a leap. And then Seamus Casey's good. Like, I think he's a really, like, sometimes I watch him play in that brief stint with New Jersey, and I'm like, man, San Jose probably wishes they took him instead of Mook in that Meyer trade. But Seamus Casey is a good player, too, and he's not even on the roster right now. But overall, I think the defense is good. It just comes down to with them, it's Dougie Hamilton's health. Like, how many games can you, if you can get a full 82-plus playoffs out of him. Back to the forwards, like, overall, it's kind of weird, because they are kind of a weird team. Because if you look at the way Sheldon Keefe kind of made them, he changed them to a more defensive style, which was a big contrast from Lindy Ruff's just go, gadget chopper kind of thing. So they're kind of a weird team. Like, most of their chances are high danger chances, which is really interesting. Like, they don't shoot a ton relative to other teams, but they do create a lot of high danger chances. So the chances they do create are of a high quality, and they do have the talent to score on that. They're just not generating a ton of chances. Again, if you go to their percentiles, they're 77th percentile high danger chances, below 50 in the mid to low range. Or sorry, mid to long range shots, right? So it's kind of interesting to see how they built that roster where they kind of, sorry, how Sheldon Keefe plays it, where they focus on creating high quality chances and they play kind of a more defensive style. You mentioned the great center depth. You have Hughes, Heishier, and I think Mercer will end up being the third line center. But I'll say this: if Glass works out and Mercer can play wing, that means Glass is good enough. If he doesn't, Mercer's probably just going to play third line and they're going to flank Glass to the wing, which is fine as well. With Hughes, you have one of the, again, when he stays healthy, a point per game scorer easily in his sleep. Heishier is one of the best two-way centers in the league, and with Barkov out this year, he's potential favorite to win the Selke this year as well. The wing, I'll say this: the wings do have some question marks. If you look at their wings, outside of Bratt and outside of Bratt and Meyer last year,
There's
so
a
they
lot of
only
question
had
marks in their
4.
wings. Like there's a lot
Like
of question marks.
Dadonov is a solid vet, but he's not like a first line guy to me. And if you look at it, the only wingers they had above 40 points last year were Bratt, Meyer, and Nosen, and Nosen's not there anymore. So they really need Meyer to return to form. But outside of that, like, again, I think the center depth is really good. The defense is solid with a ton of upside. The goaltending too, the age worries me a little bit, but it's solid with Markstrom and Allen. Like
Markstrom was kind of weird because Markstrom had a bit of a, like, I would say relative to his standards, he had a bit of a down year last year. But then Jake Allen had this,
great playoffs though.
Yeah, great playoffs. And then Jake Allen had this crazy good regular season to kind of make up for Markstrom not having the best of regular seasons. So I mean, their goaltending is fine. Like if like, I'm not expecting Allen to be like one of the best backups in the league again, but like if he's just a really good backup, that's good enough for me. And then if Markstrom at least bounces back, or even if his play kind of stays the same as like last year, he's still in a like average to above average goalie. And that's kind of all you need with this kind of offensive talent in front of you, right? It's because they're going to score a ton of goals. Like, you can win games 4-3. Like, would you like, Markstrom to make it like, make it a 4-1 game and like, 25 saves on 26 shots? Sure. But you can get away with more when your offense is better. I guess my question
for me, like the question mark, this team is health. Again, Jack Hughes needs to stay healthy.
It is just my question. Actually, was going to be: does Jack Hughes stay healthy? Because when Jack Hughes got hurt, I think you kind of saw the Devils just kind of fell off a cliff.
Fall apart. Yes.
Yeah, they essentially fell apart, and that's my worry with the team. Because with the way Hughes plays, I hate to say this, but he's kind of bound to have an injury at some point during the year. With the way he plays. Reckless. Yeah, and that's kind of his issue because like he can't be reckless though because his team needs him healthy because. Like, I think we talked about, you mentioned the Barkov injury. Like, Florida's still going to be a really good team without Barkov. Whereas I don't think that's necessarily the case with the Devils if Hughes gets hurt because their offense just falls apart.
Like, he's one of their, like, Bratt and Hughes are their two best playmakers, and funny enough, they're both on the same line. But for me, it's like, the thing is, last year you look at it, two of their most important players, Hughes only played 62 games. Hamilton only played 64, right? And it's like, I know this is a bit of a leap of faith, but like at some point, the talent on this team is just too overwhelming to ignore. And that's how I feel with this team.
Also, at some point, they'll hopefully play 82 games.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a second year under Keefe's system. Again, there's upside. There's guys that can improve as well. Like for me, this team, I don't want to say again, I don't say this necessarily has to be the year. It has to be the year you start to see the ascension of this team. And like, I thought it was going to be last year. I'm giving them the second year under Keefe's system, and I think it's going to be this year. My X factor, if it's not Jack Hughes' health, was Timo Meier, because there's no way they paid for this guy, like this version.
Because the version of Meier they're paying for was a guy who had like 2-3 shots a game, hit a ton, was almost essentially point per game, right? They've gotten a version where he's maybe like 0.7 points per game if they're lucky.
He's 0.7 points per game his career in New Jersey. He was 0.7 in San Jose, but bear in mind that includes like rookie year where he was 0.88, second year where he was 0.24. Like 3 of his years in San Jose were as follows. He had one down year with 0.57, but he was 0.85. He had a 0.99, and then that year between San Jose and New Jersey was 0.85, right? And it's like with the hits and the shots and the havoc he created on the top line, that's the guy you trade for. They haven't gotten that guy. And because of the lack of wing depth on this team, they need him to be that guy. And like that to me, if you're not saying Jack Hughes' health as the biggest factor, that to me is the biggest factor. Is that if Meyer can become that dominating presence on the left wing, now all of a sudden there's a lot less holes on a roster that already, frankly, when healthy, has very few holes to begin with.
Yeah. Like they badly, I'm gonna say this, they badly need Meyer to be better because like they have so many question marks at wing. Like, and again, their only good wingers at this point, it seems like, are
Especially if Mercer
Brian
slots back to third line center, then it's like what? Andre Palat, Dadonov, Cody Glass, like Paul Cotter's fine as a fourth liner, but that's really it. I mean, it's rough if Meyer's only a 0.7 guy and Mercer has to move back to 3C. Like that, it becomes even more drastic of an issue then. So like, yeah,
and the problem is like you know what Andre Palat is at this point in his career. You know what Evgeny Dadonov is at this point in his career. Like the only guy that could take, like either take another step forward or like bounce back is probably Timo Meyer, right? Like I don't think the Devils don't have any prospect wingers in their, like I had a quick look. They don't have any prospect wingers in their system, so there's nothing coming in the system to help with that. Yeah, it's all in the defense. It's all in the defense, and I think they have a goalie too. But yeah.
I'd love to see them maybe, if they're not going to keep Casey, maybe trade Casey for a wing would be the move. But again, who knows?
Would it make more sense to trade? Would it make more sense to trade Nemec at that point? I guess he was the higher pick and stuff, but if Casey's the better player, you have to go with the better player, right? Because Nemec might fetch you more value, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. For me, it's just the reason I have them over Carolina is just Carolina's system could propel them, but I just had to go with the talent because at some point, like I said, I have reiterated this like 3 times. The talent has to come together on this team because we see it; it's there, and we see the potential of what it could be, and it's right mix.
My thing is, so my thing was just like I think Jack Hughes is just going to be hurt at some point during the year, which is I know it's like a really weird thing to bet on, but with the way he plays and everything, like when he does get hurt, like his team just like you notice the Devils just aren't the same team without him, right? So I wonder if that. I think my belief was that
he's never played 82 games, but the one year he played 78, he scored 99 points in 78 games. Like,
didn't he also have 99 points last year too? Or am I wrong?
70 and 62. Still really good.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking of a different year. Then there might be a different year that he was.
Like the last 4 years, 1.14, 1.27, 1.19, 1.13 over a point per game. Problem is this part. Games played 49, 78, 62, 62. That's the problem.
The 49. Wait, was it? No, the 50s. Actually, I was gonna say I think the 2020-2021 year he actually played a full season technically because 56 was the max, but again, only 1 year.
But outside of that, yeah.
I'll give him that. He's at least played one full season. Yeah.
But the last 4 years, it just hasn't been the case. And again, 78 close, but like, I think if he plays a full season, I think if some of the guys even progress linearly, which I know progression isn't always linear, but some of the guys progress a bit on the back end, and Meyer returns to form, like to me, this team has the least talent questions and depth questions in the division, so I just had to put them here. But
they do have some wing depth questions though. Like, so I wouldn't say least depth question, but like the wing depth is a really big question, and then they don't have any other questions depth wise.
I think compared to the other teams in the division, they have the least center depth questions and the least defensive depth questions. Like I know what Hamilton can do when he's healthy. Like Hughes looked good pretty good in spurts last year, even though I know people make the
Well, I mean, Hamilton has the question marks about health, right? Same with the Jack Hughes, the question marks about health. So I mean, there are still questions like. The health questions are.
I have less questions with their defense and centers than I do any other team in this division, with the exception of Washington for the defensemen. So it's like for me, it's like this just had to be.
I was gonna say the questions are more health than play related. I'd say that's.
But I'm not confident in like again the Metro Division we talk about this. Like this is one that I'm least confident in terms of where all these teams are going to finish. Okay. Team most likely to win the cup if you had to pick.
From this division? This is tough. It's weird because I'm not. It's not that
I think I know what you're going to say because I think I have the same answer.
Well, I'm leaning the Capitals only because like if there's a team that has the physicality to like because the playoffs are a different animal, right? Because as long as you get into the playoff, like they're going to get into the playoffs, right? With their play, probably. I think they're the team that is the most like has the best built team for the playoffs.
Okay. I have the Rangers. Okay, so hear me out. Hear me out.
I love the talent, but no, this team.
If they make the playoffs, talent matters more in the playoffs. I think people talk about depth, yes, to an extent, but high end talent matters a lot too. And like New York has high end talent in all the right places. And if they get to the playoffs, like having Shesterkin, having those two lines where you are kind of playing your top lines more, the high end talent on that team just makes me think if they do get in, they're going to be a problem for at least within the division for teams they play. So I just have because again, I see with Carolina, to me, it's like unless somebody takes a leap or they trade for someone, I don't see them winning it. The Devils, again, like the talent's there. It's just they haven't gone deep before. Washington, it's a lot of depth, but not a lot of high end talent. And Columbus, we know, like, again, similar idea where it's like guys haven't hit their ceiling and they're really young and they haven't done it yet. Whereas the Rangers, like I've seen them make the conference finals before. I've seen them go deep. They are a veteran team with a bunch of guys with playoff experience. If they get in, if they can survive the depth issues, I think that it's weird to say because I have them out of the playoffs. But if they get in, I think
the depth issues might. My concern was the depth issues might sink them in the playoffs because you are going to play your top guys more minutes, but like how many minutes can you afford to play them before they just get fatigued, right? I think that's the question there.
I do agree, but I do think having Shesterkin as a backbone just like and you see it in the playoffs sometimes. Shesterkin's just a monster. I think he can.
I've seen the good and the bad because there's been some series where he hasn't been super great. Like he's had some really rough. Like he's got yanked a couple times too, right? So like he's kind of weird. But like he's really really good in the regular season, but then like the playoffs, it's like you either get beast mode or you just get like the I don't know you forgot to inject.
It's just weird to me. Like I don't like any of the teams in this division to.
No, that's the problem. Did you see how long I took? Did you see how long I took to think about it? Like I was like. Like
I would say if it wasn't them, it would be the Devils. If you asked me to pick one of the four teams I picked to make, it'd be the Devils.
I was between the Devils and the Capitals. I do like how the Capitals are built as a team, but then the Devils, like the talent, there's just more talent with the Devils, right? Or more high end talent.
Same with me. The Devils. I think the Devils and Rangers have the most high end talent in this division. It's just which manifests itself and which stays healthy, really. All right, and if you were to pick an MVP from this division, who would it be?
MVP.
So, guy who's most likely to win the Hart.
I feel like I'm gonna have to go Jack Hughes, right? Like I don't.
Yeah, 100%.
Can't.
If he stays healthy, 100 points.
It was between Hughes and Shesterkin. Like Shesterkin's never won one, but he got close that 1 year, so it was between those two. But I think as a forward, it's a lot easier to win the Hart than a goalie. So I think Hughes makes more sense.
Well, also he gets 100 points, plays 82, finishes first in the Metro. Again, like there's an argument.
Yeah, I was gonna say too. I think the other thing too is like Shesterkin that 1 year, right? Like he, like you remember that 1 year where he had like that basically
won every. Yeah, he basically
won everything, but even then he still couldn't win the Hart that year.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of my line for saying, well, if that couldn't win you the Hart, I don't know what will.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. Like for me, if you pick a top three, it'd be Hughes, Shesterkin, and Panarin to win the Hart out of this division. Yeah. I don't know, I'm just not like that's what I mean about it's a weird division. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of like incomplete teams in a way, and so it's hard to kind of figure this out. And as we had a lot of differences. Like you had, you had the Isles below the Pens. You had the Canes finishing one. I had the Devils finishing one. There's just a lot of, and then some people I know have some people have the Caps finishing one. Some people have the Rangers in the playoffs. There's just a lot to figure out with this division. And I'm kind of curious to see how it all manifests itself through the regular season.
Yeah, and I think a lot of other people too had Columbus missing the playoffs, whereas we have them actually like we essentially have them potentially getting in, right? Like getting in, or like even like being a lot better than what other people think they are. Because we said as anywhere from 2 to 5 or 2 to 6 is where their ceiling could be.
All right. So that's our Metro preview. Next week we're doing the Atlantic, which I do need to recalibrate how I had that a little bit.
Yeah, that's changed since the Barkov injury. Spoiler. I mean, I wasn't going to spoil it earlier, but you already mentioned it now. So spoiler alert, the Barkov injury kind of
it's definitely going to change it. So when I do the recalibration, I'm curious to see where I have them. But yeah, next week we'll do the Atlantic, and we'll probably, I think by the end of this week, Yahoo should update their fantasy ranking, so we can start talking a bit more about
Well, I was gonna say we
guys.
might have to do Atlantic. We might have to do Atlantic and then the central, like the central, right? So we might have to like double
Yeah.
dip on those just to get those out because we
That's
want to
fine.
get both before the season starts.
And then I also kind of want to do a fantasy thing on like guys ADPs and long shots, and it's because Yahoo hasn't updated because I think they still had Matt to Chuck.
Yeah, but that's really that depends on if they updated it or if they leave it as the same as it is. Like I don't know if we can really do a good if they're giving us shitty rankings. Like I hate when Yahoo does this kind of crap. But like then again, there's no better. The other platforms for fantasy hockey all suck. So like ESPN's not good. Like,
Well, it's just annoying because I think they just go all out with football, and they don't do like they don't really. I don't say they don't give a shit as much about the other sports, but like they kind of don't.
you know, the honest, I'll make this comparison. It's like like with fantasy hockey, they do the Tyler Lockett where they just go down after catching the ball just to avoid getting hit. Whereas like with fantasy football, it's like they're diving at the goal line to try to get the touchdown, and then they're
Okay, no, they
that big
updated it.
hit.
They have Matthew to Chuck at preseason 88 now, which is fair, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's more reasonable now. I was gonna say they had him like top 20, didn't they? At one point, like top 20?
Yeah, no, they had 14, bro.
Okay, top 15. Okay, I mean close enough. 15, 20, same thing.
Yeah. All right. So again, guys, that's you enjoyed the weekend. That's us here at Toe in the Crease. We're signing out. Again, I'm SJ. That's WillyDubyz. We'll catch you guys later. All right.
All right, see you guys later. Peace.